Escapism is something I always value in games.
Taking on the role of someone completely different and exploring that to the fullest potential. And to me, no series scratches that itch quite like Metal Gear. High-stakes missions about sneaking around, shadowy conspiracies, nuclear weapons, and giant robots. Featuring just enough military realism to contrast with sci-fi or supernatural elements. Throw in a little romance, slapstick comedy, and existential moments that beg the question, what are we all fighting for? This is tactical espionage action. This is Metal Gear Solid. September 21st, 2007, a new character is added to the official Super Smash Bros. Dojo website in anticipation of a new game.
Kept you waiting, huh?
At the time, I had no idea who this dude was, but when Brawl finally launched, I had a blast taking out beloved Nintendo mascots with explosive weapons. Turns out, this Snake guy is pretty cool.
Snake, showtime.
Reading up on the new trophies I unlocked, this would set me on a path I could never turn back from. A few years later, I would abandon the Wii to embrace PlayStation in my teenage years. Enter the Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, featuring 3 iconic titles, but not the first game for some reason. So, my initial and probably most formative Metal Gear experience would be Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty.
Kept you waiting, huh? I'm at the sneak point.
First released in November 2001, this was an ambitious, highly anticipated follow-up to one of the most groundbreaking games on PlayStation. We were going from this to this. The new millennia would mark the last giant technological leap in console generations. Snake was back in another action-packed adventure, but this time he's not affiliated with the US military, or any government for that matter. No, you're part of a small anti-Metal Gear organization, Philanthropy. Your objective? To track down this new prototype weapon and expose it to the world. The opening tanker mission highlights both new advancements in gameplay and the technology of the PS2. You can shoot out lights, peek around corners, and aim in first person. The wind howls in your ears and raindrops ricochet off your body. There's a striking attention to detail. A huge addition to this game was the ability to perform hold-ups. Catch an enemy off guard and tell him hands up.
Freeze.
It's a great sequence to kick things off, slowly easing you into the action as the tension ramps up. Equipped with a digital camera, tranquilizer pistol, and a pack of cigarettes, it's your mission to infiltrate, evade, document, and get the hell out of there. Or at least, it was supposed to be.
We're changing your code name for all following communication. You are now designated Raiden.
In perhaps the greatest bait and switch in gaming, Snake would not be the main character in MGS2. For the majority of the campaign, you play as Raiden. The story picks up 2 years later. Off the coast of Manhattan, this huge cleanup facility, the Big Shell, is constructed to contain a massive oil spill. As a new recruit to Special Forces Unit Foxhound, it's up to you to infiltrate the site, safeguard hostages, and neutralize enemy forces. When you pick up that controller, you're not a legendary soldier, and you're not some kind of hero. In Sons of Liberty, you're just a rookie, conditioned by extensive virtual training. Raiden's a total amateur who's never seen real combat until now. All those VR missions are a pale imitation of the real thing, when you're going up against a convoluted terrorist plot and facing bosses with supernatural abilities. You're forced into an environment completely unprepared and unqualified for the task at hand, and a single mistake could have dire consequences. What you thought was real was only a fraction of the truth, and the longer you spend on the big shell, the more things start to unravel. Metal Gear is a game of hide and seek. Sure, it's best to remain undetected, but part of the fun is finding new ways to get yourself out of a situation. Crawling under furniture, hiding in lockers, or hanging off railings. Enemy forces are just relentless, and going in guns blazing is just asking for game over. The early hours of the main mission really make you feel powerless. I am getting caught constantly. With a little practice, you get a better feel for the guards' field of vision and what they're capable of. Over the course of the game, you'll collect a whole arsenal of weapons and gadgets, giving you new ways to play. There's plenty of unconventional tactics to try out, like shooting fire extinguishers for a quick diversion, or distracting soldiers with lewd magazines. I read them for the articles.
Yeah, baby.
There really is this deliberate attention to detail, giving weight to your actions. Suspicious sights and sounds are investigated, and commanders are constantly checking in on patrols.
Enemy sight.
If you're caught, enemies won't immediately swarm the building. No, they have to pick up their radio and call for reinforcements. An action you can interrupt at any time. Nowadays, you pick up a modern third-person action game, and the controls are standardized. Right stick to aim, left stick to move around, and triggers to ready your weapon and fire. But back in 2001, there was no standard. Twin-stick analog controls were next-gen. So how do you get around in this game? Playing Metal Gear Solid is kind of like driving a car. You're constantly scanning the environment and glancing over to your mirrors, or in this case, the Soliton radar. Back up against a corner, and the camera will flip around. That's your rearview mirror. You can use this as a vantage point to peek out and check your surroundings. First-person view allows you to aim freely. Hold down the weapon button to aim, and release to fire. Might seem unconventional, but with practice, it felt just right. Especially with a stealth game, you want to stay undetected and make every shot count, so this actually adds a lot of tension. MGS2 primarily uses fixed camera angles. With this perspective comes an advantage modern stealth games are severely lacking. Overhead visibility. Having that bird's eye view so you can actually see what's going on. And if you're spotted, the radar is disabled, so you gotta keep your optics open and be ready for anything. And when I say anything, I do mean anything. The unit you're going up against, Dead Cell, is full of crazy characters. You got the Mad Bomber Fat Man speeding around on rollerblades like Jet Set Radio. Fortune is more of a tragic figure seeking to avenge her father's death. And then there's Vamp, who's literally a vampire.
So that's why they call him Vamp. No, Vamp isn't for vampire, it's because he's bisexual.
It's that juxtaposition of relatively grounded military settings and terminology with straight-up absurdity. Metal Gear Solid has a very specific and quirky sense of humor. Sometimes it's the slapstick nature of toying with guards and their patrol patterns, optional details that encourage you to experiment,
Think you can shoot that thing?
or simply how characters react in codec conversations. Might seem goofy to some, but it's a world that's fully realized. There's a surprising amount of depth. I think the biggest misconception about the series is it's just about the convoluted storyline. There's definitely more than meets the eye from gameplay, characters, and on a thematic level. All this adds up to a game that, despite its divisive nature, ultimately leaves a lasting impression. We'll be back with more Metal Gear after this. to the show.
Great.
As you make your way through the facility, you'll encounter plenty of twists and turns along the way, from disarming bombs to infiltrating enemy ranks to extracting hostages. What they told you in the mission briefing is only the tip of the iceberg. There's something else going on here. Metal Gear Solid 2 is an intense action thriller where nothing is as it seems. Layers of deception and conspiracies compile on top of each other. The situation is constantly escalating, and you're caught in the middle of it. It's an overwhelming experience, and that's exactly what Raiden is dealing with. You're on a floating hunk of metal miles from shore. There's nowhere else to go. There's the mission, and nothing else.
The computer, an extension of the human intellect. Soon, the ultimate tool will become the ultimate enemy.
Metal Gear Solid 2 was created at a turning point in human history. The world was entering the digital age. Development began in 1999, and the new millennium was right around the corner. In many ways, this was a time of optimism, but the future the game depicts is far more complicated. The shadowy forces revealed during your mission are primarily concerned with an overflow of digital information. The internet is a chaotic and volatile place. What will be forgotten and what will be preserved for future generations?
The Arsenal plans include a system to digitally manage the flow of information, making it possible to shape the truth for their own purposes.
By controlling the flow of information through curation and censorship, the Patriots seek to stabilize their grip on society and prevent the world from plunging into chaos, only for their own benefit. These games have always had a strong anti-war message, from the enduring threat of nuclear weapons to the immense power of corporate interests that perpetuate conflicts around the world. MGS2 is more focused on the concept of information warfare and how that affects our daily lives. According to NATO's official documentation on information warfare, media users are becoming increasingly aware that they are objects of disinformation activities aimed at affecting their perception of reality. Sometimes it's hard to tell what's real and what's not, or what to believe in, but we all have the responsibility to seek out the truth and choose what to pass on.
But is that even your own idea?
Or something Snake told you?
When you first arrive on the scene, Raiden is essentially a blank slate. What he's learned from VR training and from his superiors is all in the interest of creating the perfect soldier. The idea that you could take any individual, and with the right environment, conditioning, and experiences, mold them into a legendary hero like Solid Snake. These forces at play, watching your every move, shaping you in their ideal image, taking your identity and using it for something else. Are you truly an individual, or simply a compilation of memories and ideas that can be fabricated or manipulated? Your perception determines your reality, and it's hard to tell the difference anymore. Over time, Raiden has definitely become a fan favorite, a badass cyborg ninja who can take on any challenge. But back in 2001, this was not the case. The character of Raiden was extremely divisive at the time. When the game was released, there was massive backlash from fans surrounding that bait and switch. All the marketing heavily featured Snake, with no traces of Raiden in trailers. His character model was even replaced by Snake to keep the audience in the dark. So this move was completely out of left field. But it's intentional. Series director Hideo Kojima wanted players to see Snake from a different perspective. The two were designed to create contrast. For most of the game, you're not controlling Snake. Snake is the one helping you. So there's a huge shift in how you perceive and relate to the character. Raiden looks up to Snake. He's read his story, ran through his missions in VR. He sees him as the ultimate soldier. But despite his reputation as this legendary hero, Snake never saw himself that way.
But Snake, you're a hero, aren't you?
I'm just a man who's good at what he does, killing. I've never fought for anyone but myself. I've got no purpose in life, no ultimate goal.
Come on.
It's only when I'm cheating death on the battlefield, the only time I feel truly alive.
Over the course of the last game, Snake had to grow as a person. The events of Shadow Moses changed him and his outlook on life.
Are you two really an NGO? Insofar as we're a non-profit organization of civilians advocating a cause, yes. The cause happens to be the eradication of Metal Gear.
We need to remember, to spread the word, to fight for change, and that's what keeps me alive.
You know, it takes time and experience to figure that stuff out. Hell, I still don't know what the heck I'm doing, but when I started this channel, I felt like I was just emulating the stuff that inspired me in the first place. I didn't know if I could stand on my own, I still don't, and that's okay. It's gonna take some time, patience, persistence, but by practicing your craft, doing the things only you can do, that's how you find your identity.
I think it's time for me to look for a new path in life.
A new path?
A new purpose.
Will you find it?
I'll find it. I know I'll find it.
If Metal Gear Solid 1 was thematically focused on nature, Sons of Liberty sets its sights on nurture. Your environment and experiences can greatly affect the way you see the world. Events in our past or trauma we're still dealing with shapes us into the future. In those moments of fear and confusion, it's hard to know what's real. There's no simple solution, and there's no easy way out. When I first played this game as a teenager, I didn't really get it. I didn't know why it hit home with me so much. But every time I went back to it, I found something new. It wasn't just mastering the mechanics and controls or unraveling its web of conspiracies. No, it was slowly figuring out, what the hell do I actually believe in? What's important to me, and what am I going to leave behind when I'm gone?
The memories you have and the role you were assigned are burdens you had to carry. It doesn't matter if they were real or not. That's never the point. I know you didn't have much in terms of choices this time. But everything you felt, thought about during this mission is yours. And what you decide to do with them is your choice.
We can't change the past. Tragedies, mistakes, growing pains, or bridges burned. But what we've been conditioned to believe is only a fraction of what's possible. When you find that for yourself, don't hold back. It's your life, and no one can decide that for you. Sons of Liberty is both the perfect successor to MGS1 and a wild card that rejects the status quo. Despite the roar of the crowd, demands of shareholders, businessmen, or collective consciousness, no one really knows what's gonna hit or miss. It's up to us to take that chance. Express yourself, put yourself out there, and don't let anyone tell you how to be. Just be you.
We're changing your code name for all following communication.
What's wrong with Snake?
Just a precaution. You are now designated Raiden.
I've had extensive training, the kind that's indistinguishable from the real thing.
You won't see that in VR, I guarantee.
They were never a part of the simulation. They're an unknown factor.
You can take your simulation and we're out here, we bleed, we die.
I've made up my mind to stay with you. Whether this is real or a bad dream, I'll keep watching you till it's over.
We're not tools of the government or anyone else.
We have a responsibility to the coming generations, to the world.
You can say that because you're a legend, a hero. I'm Jack the Ripper, a dirty reminder of a terrible mistake.
You can stop being part of a mistake, starting now. Find something to believe in and find it for yourself. You can find your own name and your own future. And whatever you choose will be you. Choose your own legacy. It's for you to decide. It's up to you.
The critics agree. Metal Gear Solid 2 is a hit. Newsweek says it rocks. The best video game for PlayStation 2 raves USA Today.
Brian, get out of here!
And Game Informer names Metal Gear Solid 2 Game of the Year.
I've been waiting for this!
Metal Gear Solid 2, only on PlayStation 2. Rated M for mature, from Konami.
Your duty as Solid Snake is to find the codec to remove the virus from the central computer. You'll find it in this grocery store establishment, in the produce section.